What's good, y'all? It's the Demouchets REACT, and we're back with another video. Who we got today, C?
Today we're back with another American reaction. Super excited about this video. If you're new to us
And we're new to you,
make sure you scroll down,
hit that subscribe button,
and turn on the post notification bell
because we're on the road to 200K.
And we cannot get there without you guys, all right? Join the family. Without further ado, let's get into the video.
Let's get it.
Daddy had lived a good life, you know, up north when he was in Massachusetts. But there was something here that brought him back. And I know it's that desire to farm, the quietness. It's a wonderful place to raise your children, you know, and it still is. My father wouldn't have ever thought that I would come back here and do any farming. He wouldn't have thought anybody would come back, especially me. So you never know. You can't say, well, you know, none of the children are going to come back, so, you know, we might as well sell it. Same thing with even the old tractors. One of the tractors is 80 years old. Dad could have very easily said, well, I'm going to get rid of these tractors. Nobody's ever going to use them again. But here we are, farming with those same old tractors.
Veteran and retired teacher Mark Smith lives with his wife Janet on the land his family has owned since 1926. Mark's grandfather, a sharecropper, had traded his cotton harvest for these 600 acres during the height of the Jim Crow era.
This is my grandmother, and that's she and Papa right there. Those are the ones who bought this house, bought this property.
And this is your family. This is what came from that.
Right, these are the children and everybody that came from that. This is out in front of the house. This is Daddy and the mother and all of the children. They were all very successful people. And I know where it comes from. It comes from this land. So, you know, we do everything we can to protect that and hold on to it. You know, don't sell it, don't give it away, don't let anybody take it.
Listen, you hear that a lot when it comes to, when you speak to our elders and you talk about land is power.
No, 100%.
It really is. You know, especially our farmlands, especially like when you start getting into genealogy research and you see who in your family were sharecroppers. Like that was one of their first like real businesses, you know, after slavery. And so to have people who have land in their family for generations and generations, that is very important to not let anybody steal it, take it. And when I say steal, see, I gotta be careful on what I say when I talk about steal. But there's this thing called like eminent domain, and it gives the government the right to come in to, you know, take the land regardless if you want to sell the land or not. And of course they have to do it lawfully, and that's in our Constitution. So they're abiding by the law, but this usually is land that's like way out in the boondocks that they didn't want. So that it was like, okay, the blacks can have it. And I don't want to make this a race issue, but a lot of times videos like this is needed for people outside of the U.S. to see certain things that we be saying, because a lot of times they'll place that victim mentality on us, and it's not us having victim mentality. These are issues that we deal with, you know. So but eminent domain is like, it's land that, you know, the blacks have had for generations after Civil War, and you know, they tilled the land. This is land that, you know, wasn't the favorable land. And so now these people have been, this land has been in their family for years, generations upon generations. And now all of a sudden they want to build a highway. You know? So this is some things that they deal with. So there's this documentary, and I want to tell y'all about it before we continue the video, before I forget it. There's this documentary that just came out on Amazon Prime, and it's called Silver Dollar Road. Go watch it. Very important. Go watch it. Y'all see some more of what African Americans deal with.
Yeah. You gotta have your paperwork for that so people don't come to try and trample over all of that.
Chad.
Land equals freedom in so many ways. Historically, land equal freedom in the sense that there was physical space, a separation
Yeah.
between black people and people who oppressed them. And then being able to use your own expertise to produce resources for your family and be economically independent, that created freedom. People really don't understand the importance of the black farmer in the
Yeah.
African American experience.
Yeah.
The black churches were often on land that had been given by a black farmer, or the black schools were located on land that a black farmer had provided.
So land is power.
Most
100%.
definitely.
Because enslaved Africans could not own property, it wasn't until 1865 that black Americans were able to formally request land from the government. But the opportunity only arose after a massacre of newly freed people at the hands of Union General Jefferson C. Davis during the Civil War. In December 1864, Davis took an opportunity to shed himself of the freed people, following his troops to safety at Ebenezer Creek. He got his soldiers across the creek using pontoon bridges, but stranded the freed women, children, and elderly on the other side, despite a Confederate cavalry following close behind.
The best figure that we can come up with is that hundreds of people apparently drowned in the creek trying to get across. In other words, they chose death over slavery. The eyewitnesses that saw what happened at the creek were absolutely horrified. And so it becomes this huge public relations disaster for the Lincoln administration. Here is, again, an army that's supposed to be liberating people, and it's causing the deaths of hundreds of people. So when Sherman takes Savannah in mid-December of 1864, Secretary of War Stanton ends up coming to Savannah, both to investigate what happened at Ebenezer Creek, but then also to figure out what are we going to do with all of these thousands of black people in the coastal area of Georgia that are now free. So on January the 12th, 1865, that evening, there was a meeting held at Sherman's headquarters, and there were 20 African-American leaders that were invited. Now, all 20 of these African-American leaders were either black ministers or black lay leaders.
67-year-old freedman Garrison Frazier, a Baptist minister, acted as the church leader's spokesperson. When asked what the freedmen needed to take care of themselves and maintain their freedom, Frazier replied, "The way we can best take care of ourselves is to have land, and turn it and till it by our own labor." 4 days later, General William T. Sherman issued Special Field Order Number 15, which confiscated 400,000 acres of Confederate land and distributed it to freed people in 40-acre parcels. Later, the Army provided some of them with mules.
The idea was to respond to that need for land, respond for that need for economic independence and self-sufficiency, with the idea that eventually they would be able to sustain themselves.
But less than a year after the special order was issued, President Andrew Johnson returned most of the land back to its previous white owners. This is what became known as the broken promise of 40 acres and a mule.
I forgot about
think
that
this
fact.
idea of 40 acres
I
and
forgot about that.
Even with that being a fact, and even with them still having their own land that they actually worked hard for, some had the paper for as well, they was still coming over and, just damaging everything that they worked for.
Oh.
There's popping all their crops up. There's burning all their churches down and all their buildings, you feel me? They was killing them in their own neighborhood that they created. Because you got to think about it. Once you're not enslaved anymore, you're a community of people in another location. So what's happening to all those people? That hate was still following them.
Yep, the hate.
You know what I'm saying? So, yeah.
So many of those massacres in our history.
Yeah.
So many. And it's not even just in the South.
Nah. No.
I recall one happening, I believe, somewhere in New York or New Hampshire. Something, I forgot the name of it that they, deemed it. But it was all over our map.
And the Mule centralized the agrarian traditions of African American people within the rural South, within the Black Belt. And land, of course, was central to that and central to their economic independence. But it also was the beginning of missed opportunities and unfulfilled promises.
They was damaged, boy.
So guys, thank you for coming, and everybody.
No, thank you guys for all you are doing.
No, it's every one of us.
It takes a team.
You put that sign in front of your house and you speak up, you know what? You're just as powerful as anything else.
Yeah.
In April 2022, a private railroad company sent letters to the Smiths and other residents of their predominantly black neighborhood asking to purchase some of their property. The company has plans to construct a railroad to transport building materials and timber. Around 3/4 of a mile of track would cut through the middle of the Smiths family's property and would sit about 700 yards behind Mark and Janet's house.
You mean
So if this is their property, that would be really dangerous, being that children are around here.
Yeah.
Like, they would have to stop everything they got going on just so they can finish their project.
A whole neighborhood. They didn't want to do
That's
like
crazy.
the edge. They said that is cutting in the middle.
Oh yeah, we're gonna cut this check for you, bro. As long as you like, we're gonna do anything we gotta do so we can get all this land out your hand. You feel me? Just so we can put this right. That's why I'm happy that he never sold the land off, and his children came back and started. You know, the father.
Oh, his grandfather.
His grandfather. I'm happy he didn't set it off, because sometimes short-term success can hurt you in the long run. You know what I'm saying? By them coming back, it was a blessing that they can have a legacy now. They can continue to build and pass it on and pass it on.
Right. Like, I wish that was in my family. You know, the land that my family owns is in the city. It's nothing like huge acres. So,
Acres, yeah.
Like, that's what I want to be able to pass down. Land is power.
After the Smiths refused to sell, the company petitioned for eminent domain, a legal practice the government or a private utility can use to seize private citizens' land for just compensation if it's for the public good. The Sandersville Railroad Company claims that the railroad would annually generate at least $1.5 million for the county.
You can see where the markers are. Where the train came up through, where it's to come this way and go across. We're on my nephew's property right now.
Right.
Well, my nephew's, it's going to cross his, and then it's going to cross my brother Williams, because he has three tracks here. He's going to go across all 3 of his pieces.
In terms of distance, length, what are we talking about here?
It's pretty wide. It's pretty wide. And that's an issue, but that's not the only issue. What about your grandkids and kids and things? They come back here. You got a train. You know, what about people on the train? I mean, just all kinds of reasons we don't want to hear. Environmental problem, noise,
Derailment.
Derailments, fires,
Derailment.
you know, toxic waste. What about waste? What are you going to bring through here? You're going to be bringing any kind of chemicals? And then on top of that, all of this, the value of it, it plummets. You know, it's not worth what it was.
Our sons will inherit something with somebody else's name on it because it's a lifetime.
It's forever.
It's forever.
We want to keep our property clean and clear, just like it's been for the last 97 years with us. And we're going to fight to keep it that way.
The Sandersville Railroad Company says the new track would be used for 1 round-trip train per day that travels at 20 miles per hour to minimize noise. The company also says it complies with all state and federal environmental guidelines.
And so to regular people just watching this, people who's like, oh, it's not a big deal. It is a big deal, because in the South, just speaking in the South, black people only own like 1% of the farmland. That is a big deal. This is how you push people off their land.
That's the beginning of it.
Yes.
That's the beginning of it.
Land ownership is a crucial tool for wealth building and independence, both of which black Americans have struggled to attain since being transported to the U.S. against their will centuries ago. The total area of black-owned farmland peaked over 100 years ago at 16 million acres, but has since plummeted more than 70%, totaling an estimated loss of $326 billion.
Black Americans have been the target of vitriolic racism and discrimination pretty much from the time they acquired their ownership in the land. Some of that manifested itself in extra-legal violence. A substantial number of Black Americans who were lynched were actually upwardly mobile African Americans, both socially and economically. In addition to the extra legal, there's been any number of technically legal ways in which Black Americans have lost land.
Historically, urban renewal and eminent domain have separated hundreds of thousands of African Americans from their property.
Redlining, the practice of mortgage lenders denying loans to people based on their race or where they live. The promise of aid that fails to materialize is all too familiar to many farmers of color.
Yeah, if you don't know about redlining, then you got to go do your research on that.
Yes.
For all you people who talk about y'all can't get loans.
Yeah, and people who say, slavery was so long ago. Why are y'all always playing victims? No, it's not about us playing victims. Oh, or this one, how come other immigrants come to the United States and they don't have problems that Black Americans have? Black Americans we're still dealing with remnants of the Jim Crow era, redlining. Look at the history of that. And then look how that plays into our schools.
You gotta look at the timing too, because it's not that long ago. Their children are now, the ages of, our adult parents. So it's like the mindset is still strong.
Right. And when you go, this is the simplest way I can show y'all what African Americans deal with. And not just us, but minorities too, but specifically African Americans for the purpose of talking about Jim Crow. Jim Crow. We have the law about redlining. Redlining plays into the values of homes in the neighborhoods. Yeah. School funding comes from the property values of the neighborhoods. The prison system, they calculate how many beds they're going to create in the prison systems based on schools. It all go together.
Yeah, you just got to understand it's a lot. But it's right there in your face type of a lot. You know what I'm saying? The information is right there. So and that's why we always preach about knowing your history, because if you don't, a lot of this information, getting your land taken from you, redlining, not being able to obtain a loan, all this stuff, the Jim Crow law, all this stuff still plays, a role in today's society if you don't know your stuff. You know what I mean?
It's remnants are still here. That's why we have to get good people in office who are not just for one group of people, but who is for all people, regardless of socioeconomic backgrounds, regardless of race, regardless of all of that. We got to get people in office to care for everybody. And I know that's kind of wishful thinking, but I mean...
that's what it is. That's basically what it is when it comes to... we're going to keep going.
Subjected to discrimination in government programs.
In the case of Black farmers, the whole process of getting a loan approved was just awful. You had people who were supposed to help you, and these government agencies who didn't and worked against you. In some cases, land would get targeted, and they would help make sure you were not successful and lose it.
I want to see what happened to his family.
My father was murdered by a white farmer who was not prosecuted. I made a commitment on the night of my father's death to stay in the South, which was not what I intended to do, to stay in the South and devote my life to working for change.
In 1969, civil rights activists Shirley Sherrod and her husband Charles founded New Communities, one of the first community land trusts in the country.
We decided that Black people had lost land so much through the years, we wanted to develop a way of not losing the land. So the land would be held in trust, which meant we would all own it. But then the opposition from white people, there were times they would shoot at the buildings. They did everything to make sure we were run off that land.
To intimidate you.
Yes, we had a pretty big farming operation going until we ran into droughts in the 70s. So it forced us to go to the local USDA office to try to get an emergency loan like all farmers were getting. The guy said, "You'll get a loan here over my dead body."
Wow.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Put us into a 3-year fight just to try to get a loan with continued drought and not having the money needed to operate the farm in the way that it should have been operated.
Squeezed out of ownership.
Yes, there were programs that they should have been offering us, which would have given us a chance to save everything.
Several reports published between 1965 and 1997 from both federal civil rights committees and a commission group confirmed the USDA has consistently failed to provide black farmers equal access to loans.
Not surprising, Black Americans who were farmers began calling the USDA decades ago the last plantation. And Black farmers have been saying for the longest time that they were being denied loans that they were totally qualified for.
The nation's African-American farmers are stepping up pressure on federal agricultural officials to end what they say is racism by the government.
In 1997, Timothy Pigford and 400 fellow black farmer plaintiffs filed a class action lawsuit against the USDA. Known as Pigford v. Glickman, it alleged the USDA discriminated against black farmers in its allocation of loans.
We have not done enough. I accept that. We need to pay reparations for documented cases of past discrimination.
In settling the Pigford cases, there was a process set up where individual black farmers had to make their case. Initially, a lot of the farmers were left out of the settlement because of just incredibly poor notice. But you ultimately did have actually 2 rounds of Pigford.
Pigford 1 and 2 settlements added up to more than $2 billion. New Communities members received $13 million, which was used to revive their operation decades after its foreclosure.
It's 1,638 acres. This place was once owned by the largest slave owner and the wealthiest man in Georgia at that time in the 1800s. Now we started planning and looking at how we could take a place that had a bad beginning in terms of slavery and use that to work with our people. And that's what we're busy doing.
While the Sherrods were able to regain what they'd lost, for the other estimated 30,000 plus approved claimants, most received $50,000.
Pigford is not nothing, but the notion that it's reparations, upon closer examination, just doesn't hold water. Economic estimate of the farmland black farmers lost between 1920 and 1997, $326 billion. Jeez. So when you compare $2 billion from Pigford that was sold as reparations, was sold as making people whole, and you compare it to the level of harm, it's obviously the level of harm is orders of magnitude higher.
A recent analysis found that the USDA provided a disproportionately low share of direct loans to black farmers in 2022. The Biden administration launched the USDA's Equity Commission, on which Shirley Sherrod serves as a member. $2.2 billion have also been earmarked for farmers who have faced discrimination before 2021, but the funds have yet to be released.
This is our Independent Day, amen? All right.
Black Americans are still finding ways to build generational wealth and create safe havens for their communities, in the same spirit as the Sherrod's Community Land Trust and the black settlements that have developed throughout history.
For us, it's this idea of kujichagulia, self-determination. This idea that as people from in a part of the African diaspora have a responsibility to make our world a better place. And we cannot wait for other people to do it. We cannot beg other people to give us anything. And that's what freedom is about, the freedom to manifest what we know we deserve.
Ashley Scott, along with Renee Walters and Laura Riley Cooper, are founding members of what started as a collective of 19 black families that bought 500 acres of land together. They are now building a whole new town called Freedom, Georgia.
I heard of this too.
On our own 502 acres to be celebrating Juneteenth, to see the children, to see the elders, to see all of these people have traveled far and wide to be here, it feels amazing. It feels like freedom. It feels like healing. It feels like love to watch my children play on the dirt, on land that we own, and that our ancestors, you know, prayed for us to be able to have this kind of experience. It means everything.
I believe that Dion and I both believe that we've heard of I said this family, but the 19 families getting together and buying the land.
Yeah.
I see this happening quite often now, and I pray that our generation is successful and that this continues to last for generations upon generations, because we have seen this happen so many times in our history. And yes, there are still neighborhoods and communities like this that are successful, but when you look at Tulsa and Florida and a lot of different places, the things that has happened, mobs coming in and burning it down, and even them, I don't want to keep putting the government on blast, but you know, building bridges right in the middle of the communities, filling it with water, you know, things like that happening. So I truly hope that we are the generation where the people who create these communities, that it actually lasts.
Oh no, it's 100% gonna last.
Because it's needed.
You gotta think about it. That time was the newspaper era. Like, it wasn't social media. You know what I'm saying? These days, they got so much stuff that's just available now that people can just look at and have understanding for instead of having to go do the research. Like, it's right there in your face type of thing. Back then with the newspaper era, something would happen. It hit the world, but not as fast as it can hit now.
A video.
You know what I'm saying? Just that quick. And I think this is a prime example of what we all need and what we all say unity is supposed to look like.
Yes,
how you're supposed to really, you know, take back and give back at the same time.
Yes, even with the lady before this segment on how she says 1,160 something acres that was once a plantation, and now they're using it for good for the community. We 100%. Are behind.
Oh man, are we?
In terms of building generational wealth. And yes, there are some families of us in this country that have been able to create that wealth and who are at the top of the food chain, but you gotta look at the
bigger picture though.
What?
No, like you're saying, they do have families who are thriving and they're doing great. Support that, you know what I'm saying, 100%. But the bigger picture is Black Americans aren't where they need to be.
Right. We are behind. And yes, there are individual families, but what I mean by we're behind, I mean collectively. We are behind in terms of how long we have been in this country.
Watch your toes.
Are you about to cut up?
Collective ownership is powerful. Our ancestors practiced it. So it's almost as if we're tapping into those same successful energies that allowed our ancestors to prosper. And my children are tapping into that energy.
It's important because it creates generational wealth, something that didn't seem obtainable for us as Black people. And it's just a way for us to leave something for our children, like build a legacy and just have something like wealth for our children. 3 years ago, I didn't think that I would have 500 acres. So the average person doesn't really think that it's obtainable until you see other people, other regular people going out and buying land. We want to inspire all the Black people that we can. Go get you some land and build wealth for your family.
I understand this thing about generational wealth, generational properties. I know that through the years, we did not have the opportunities to get real estate.
Nope.
It was not available to us. Even today, even what's happening right now with this trying to grab our land. You see, this has happened to a lot of people, and it's happened through all the years. And that is the reason that so many black people suffer now in poverty.
I feel that no one owes me anything. I serve a powerful God, a powerful Jesus. I've not suffered. In fact, I am humbled. And I've taught my sons the same thing. I said, God is the great equivocator. If you're looking over your shoulder and you're looking for something, you're not going to find it and you're not going to get it that way. You look ahead.
Okay, yeah. That's the end of it, man. Hey, this was hard, bro.
Right.
This was hard.
Right. I like it. It was a good documentary. Again, guys, that documentary on Amazon Prime is called Silver Dollar Road.
Yeah.
And I just want people to take from this that we are not victims. Okay, yes, we go through a lot. We still fighting a lot. But we want to create wealth on our own. We don't want nothing given to us. Not them reparations, nah. We can have that for our communities, but we want to work for what we want.
Yeah.
And that's the bottom line.
You know, at the end of the day, it's like scars run deep, you know? And sometimes people can't forget that part of it.
Right. We are our ancestors.
At the end of the day, you have to, like, forget the pain and remember the lesson in that type of moment that you was in, so you can know not to do that again, not for that to happen again, and what you learn in that process, so you can make something bigger for your future.
Right,
you know?
right. And a lot of times, you know, when we look back on our past and past public figures and all of that, they were carrying the weight of our ancestors. The civil rights movement was only 100 years after the emancipation.
Oh, they did the work.
Right. They did a lot of work.
Did the work.
But we are what? Only 50, almost 60 years after that? We are carrying their work.
Frontlining it.
You know, so hopefully this gave y'all a better view on some of the things that we deal with as African Americans in our country. Alright, so we hope you guys enjoyed this video with us. Like this video, subscribe, turn on the post notification bell. We have enabled our super thanks if you like to support the channel that way. We'll see you soon.
Peace.